Hello everyone, my name is Bandit, and it's time to grab our trusty Sears toolkit because we're fixing a Survivor cast. Australian Survivor All-Stars was a cast so close to being perfect, with big names we were all excited to see return, like Flick, Matt, Phoebe and Henry, only to have their placements superseded by several, for all intents and purposes, no names in the community. So I'll be looking over some of the controversial casting decisions and changing them so we have the heavy hitting dream Australian Survivor All-Stars cast we all dreamed of. Starting off with Shane, we can wrap in the second boot of the season Jericho, who were obviously kept on the cast. While I doubt they don't last too long on any iteration of an All-Star season, they were both big personalities on their season. Jericho was the Cookie Monster, a devil disguised in an angel's body.
People underestimated me. People thought that, Jericho couldn't hurt a fly. And one by one, they were dropping like flies.
And Shane Gould still remains perhaps the biggest hero Australian Survivor has ever had. Plus, with such a strong supporting cast, it means they aren't as incredibly obvious threats. Like we see on Makuta, Shane gets voted out first, but if you're on the season, are you seriously voting for a woman that was only physical and didn't even make the jury on her original season, or a former winner? Our first change comes in the form of third pick, Daisy. For me, Daisy made probably the worst choice at every part of the Champions vs Contenders 2 season, and while seeing her perpetually dig her grave was fun, I think there were some better season 4 women with untapped potential. One of them is Pia, that's another winner, who in spite of almost being the first boot of the season and in the initial minority, managed to get into the majority until the mid to late portion of the merge. I think Pia really showed the power of threat management and a sturdy social game, with me even commenting in my winner rankings how certain parts of her original winning game make for a quintessential Australian Survivor winner.
A goat is someone who follows. I definitely didn't follow people. If you were calling me a goat, does me blindsiding you not count? The girls will back me up.
After that is Michelle, who is a decent all-star pick. However, I felt there were better forms of Season 2 female representation. And in all facets of the game, outside of placement, I think this woman is superior to her, and that's Tessa. For me, Tessa has the perfect roller coaster of a season, and I'm honestly surprised not to see her back yet. She was in the minority, saved by an idol, became a swing, got into the majority, got blindsided at merge, got back into par, got blindsided herself in a 3-2-2-2 vote onto the jury, and then got voted off the jury. In her season, she really showed how adaptable of a player she was, with key skills in being a scrappy underdog player. And her vote out was one of the craziest, resulting in a strong redemption arc story. Then we have Henry, aka Zen Hen. I did consider swapping him for Luke, as I did have Luke on my Australian Survivor All-Stars cast when I couldn't use any of the original cast, but this is a bit different. Unlike that video, the pool is 95 players as opposed to the 71 I had to work with then. Considering Luke already had his shot at redemption, I'm benching him on this occasion because the cast is still extremely strong without him. Plus, I'd rather give another player a second shot over giving him a third in 4 seasons. So Henry remains on the cast. His Season 2 game was fun, to put it simple. He blindsided the king and queen of his original tribe in Mark and Sam, he found an idol, smuggled jam, and even got taken out in a blindside with an idol in his pocket. Henry's a fun villain, and one that's going to make big moves for the sake of doing them. He's a massive fan of the show, and you can tell in 2017 he was enjoying every second of being on the cameras, so he can continue to namaste on All Stars. Following this, we have Abby, and while not the most strategic, I felt she had a strong enough run on Champions vs Contenders 2 to keep her slot on All Stars. Firstly, the girl is a physical powerhouse, and despite never winning an immunity challenge, was second in a surprising number of them. Love her or hate her, she and Roscoe pulled one of the biggest flips in that season by jumping ship from the Sporty 7 to joining the Misfits. Had Luke not found the tribal pass in season 4, she very likely could have went on to win that season and had a very notable 3-person alliance with Janine, herself and Pia, which ran the majority of the game. I've hinted at my confusion about her being on All Stars earlier, and that's Lydia. For me, Lydia is just a worse version than Abby, and while I acknowledge production like their former sporting legends, I prefer people that are going to play hard and offer versatility on their second showing. Lydia isn't either of them, so the question is who to replace her with. While there are some great females in Season 3, I actually swapped her with a Season 4 player I just talked about, Janine.
Survivor is that ultimate test to see what you're made of. My gameplay is a social game. I can deal with people from every walk of life. Rock stars, princes.
I've referenced it in my other casting videos, but to me, Abby, Janine and Pia feel like the big Tom, Lex and Ethan of Australian Survivor. It's hard to see one without the other two. While Pia was social and Abby was physical, Janine was the strategic force behind the Alliance's decisions. Couple that with being one of the best female villains on the show's history, to the point Dirty Harry was calling her their godmother, and it's a recipe for success. Then there's John. Goodness. Why did they cast him on the show? Like, he's a sweetheart, and if this was a cast on who I wanted to have a beer with, John would make that top 24. But apart from his occupation in mining and addiction to chicken parms, I literally cannot tell you anything about him. In fact, I think he's less worthy of being an all-star than Daisy. And that's saying something. So I dropped him and picked up someone whose name rhymes with his, with far more game potential in Sean. In Season 4, Sean displayed a lot of game ability and was the only one to challenge the infamous David Jeanette pre-merge.
No doubt in my mind that Dave and Luke will go back to the original champions, you know, come merge.
Before merge, we've got to take at least one of these guys out. Agreed.
All in all, Sean was a triple threat. He can win challenges, he can pull off moves, and was well liked by the entirety of his cast. Unfortunately, we never got to see the true potential of Sean on Champions vs Contenders 2, as he was eliminated fairly early, but he should make a more impactful run on All-Stars, considering he'll be playing with players just as threatening as him. The next few people I'll be rattling off a little bit quicker, because I felt they were All-Star worthy. Starting with Matt Rogers, and I mean, Matt Rogers is easily one of the best to never win the game on the show, and got eliminated in perhaps the most bizarre tribal council Australian Survivor has ever seen. Come on. Plus, he completely controlled the game strategically by assuming the Godfather position. His Season 3 game was extremely memorable, and, to be honest, he was one of the players I was most excited to see play for a second time. After Matt, we have Phoebe. While I am cautious to add pre-merge boots and massively decrease the pool casted, I mean, it's Phoebe. She's one of the biggest names despite her relatively small stint in 2016, and pulled off several badass moves with idols.
The tribe decided who was going home tonight, but I didn't really get to weigh in on that decision. So, I'm just going to weigh in on it now.
I think it speaks volumes that despite visiting all 6 tribal councils pre-merge, she still made it to just one round before the merge. What's even more impressive is that she was actively targeted at all these tribals, either by Vavau or her own Aganoas. Plus, she's only one of 2 pre-merge boots, the other should be obvious, so I felt it was fair to keep her. Then there's Flick. In spite of being absolutely baptised by the edit, to the point she was purple in All Stars, she was a massive player in Season 1, who pulled off the biggest blindside of the season in taking out Brooke. Plus, she's a fantastic female villain, and finding strong strategic female villains in the earlier Australian Survivor seasons is tough. Let's just hope in this alternate universe she actually gets an edit that supports all the pre-season hype. The last pre-merger is Nick, and again we need to put him on. Nick for me is the Australian Rob Sesternino, someone who played the game hard and was willing to lie while ideologies such as mateship plus honour were prioritised by many. He was a pretty revolutionary player for his time and was the first person to have the sneaky snake persona.
So what if we take this, say that there was a clue to the hidden immunity idol, but we tell everyone the wrong clue?
Then there's Lockie, an individual who is half mountain and half man. Regarded as one of the biggest heroes in Australian Survivor, Lockie showed he was a fighter by surviving on the bottom time after time. Whether through his social connections, his underrated strategic mind, his challenge prowess, or immunity wins, he managed to make it far longer than he should have. Plus, he played a key factor in numerous big blindsides during the season, like at the Adam, Jared and Annalise boots. Harry was the next boot on All-Stars, but once again I felt he was All-Star worthy. In Champions vs Contenders 2, he showed adaptable gameplay, allowing him to survive rounds securely in the majority, or surviving in the minority thanks to his idols. Due to his aggressive gameplay and solid connections, he made it to the final 3 of that season, where Baden voted him out in spite of the season-long theme being for there to be 2 contenders at the final 2. So he can also be painted as a you should have won player this season coming into All-Stars, because Baden's move was presented as questionable on the show. After Harry is Lee, and again he's the original runner-up of Australian Survivor's 10-play series, a shoo-in to return. His presence in 2016 was noteworthy as the first true Golden Boy figure the show has had. He was the first person to go on an immunity run by winning an impressive 3 immunity challenges in a row. While he wasn't the most interesting of TV, he's incredibly iconic and showed he has what it takes to make it to the end. Now back to the controversial picks with Zach, who is probably one of the most controversial returnees ever on Survivor worldwide. I mean, nothing says All-Star like an arrogant, hypocritical sexist. Right, Australian Survivor?
I think it is highly possible that a woman could beat me in a challenge, but that all depends on what it is. If it's physical strength, girl, no chance. But, you know, if we're looking at maybe like a dishwashing challenge, they might be in trouble.
And while it was nice seeing Zach being clearly a better human being on his second showing, if you want a male contender from Season 3, there's someone who supersedes him in every way. Benji. Benji was a strategic Goliath that during that season pulled no punches as he voted out Tegan, and when she came back from a redemption duel, eventually voted her out again. Not to mention he was a massive underdog at the merge and defeated the infamous Matt Rogers at the final 9 as he redirected Sharon's idol away from him. Jackie is someone who admittedly does have game potential, but at the end of the day, I didn't see why she had to be cast alongside Henry, when both their stories are similar, plus there is such strong female representation from Season 2 that just outclasses her. I really wanted to put hot model Sarah on the cast, but as per usual, stuck with my Olympian gal, Ziggy. For me, Ziggy has way too many noteworthy moments to ignore. She was in constant swing positions. In Summatow, she was given a super idol by her tribe, which she successfully lied about, won several immunity challenges, and killed Annalise's idol. For me, she's the full package, and someone that is incredibly consistent. On very few occasions do I feel she's a pre-merge boot, meaning she makes deep runs on most games. Plus, she is going to play hard, either physically, strategically, or socially, so all in all, when she goes. Then we get to Shawnee, who, to be honest, I did consider dropping for fellow female contender Fenella, as she was the more vocal individual on Champions vs Contenders. And you have to remember, I obviously can't take into account these contestants' All-Star games where Shawnee fully weaponized her social game. But I decided to keep Shawnee anyway, as even in Fenella's absence, she had some fun moments like her one-sided rivalry with Brian and the Shh Alliance. Plus, she's really funny, so she had enough positives for me to keep her on. As alluded to earlier, I kept AK on much like Phoebe, and for those that are less familiar with Australian Survivor, just know AK is basically the male version of Phoebe. He went from having a fake chicken idol to a real idol he played on Jared, which caused him to be the leader of his alliance before getting swap screwed.
Jonathan,
Not the chicken.
it's not the chicken idol. Some people might call this a stupid move, and I have absolutely no regrets. I'd like to play it for Jared.
No offense to AK, of course, but I don't think many people were expecting for him to control the majority alliance while Lockie was on the definitive bottom. Ultimately, he proved on Season 2, in spite of his scattered-brained schemes, he could find success, and that's good enough for me. Then there's Tarzan. Nope, not going to sugarcoat it. The man idled himself out of the game at the 4th overall tribal. How does that make him an all-star? Instead, I swapped him with a Season 3 person that ups the number of male villains on the cast, and that's Brian. Now, some people love him, some people hate him, but that's what makes him a good villain. He was someone we could root against in his original season, and that sort of person was missing coming into All-Stars. While Brian's social game was lacking, he still proved he had strong strategy, as him and Monica pulled off a successful pendulum strategy for the mid-portion of the merge. He also tied the record number of immunity wins at this section of the game at 4, so he's physically competent as well. Making it to 4 was Brooke, who, much like Flick, was such a big presence in Season 1 that she couldn't be ignored. Sure, she didn't have as defining a game moment as Flick's final 7 move, but she still controlled the game up until that point, and even then her shocking 4-3 blindside allows for a strong redemption arc. In my opinion, Brooke was also a player before her time on Season 1, as she was willing to play devious with strong strategy. Then we have Moana, who I also dropped. Even though she had a lot of potential on her original season, and showed she could be a figurehead of her alliance after the swap, on All Stars, it doesn't change the fact she didn't make it to the swap on her original season. Some of those keeping track may have noticed a big female name from Season 1 I haven't covered yet, but I will now, and that's Christy. Now, I've already stated in my winner ranking video that I'm not the biggest fan of Christy's game, but I also recognise she is incredibly iconic as a winner. It would be weird just not to have her, the first winner of the series, make a return. Her underdog story was super strong, she won the final immunity challenge against all odds, and even beat Lee in probably one of the best final tribal performances ever.
I tried my best in every single challenge. Then when I went to the vow, I made my move. Phoebe was gunning for me. I managed to flip that around, and then she went home.
Although she probably doesn't do great on an All-Stars return, you can't deny it'll be fascinating to see a Christy return on the show. Then we get to the final 2, Sean and David, who are obviously worthy of retaining their position on All-Stars. In fact, the fact we got such a strong final 2 was a saving grace of this otherwise lackluster All-Star season. Sharon, of course, needs no introductions. She was the runner-up on Season 3, seen as the you should have won person, after playing the more flashy game, but seeming to lose the battle at Final Tribal Council. She was a jack of all trades at pretty much everything the game of Survivor asked for. She found idols, tied the record for immunity wins at 4, was part of one of the most dominant alliances alongside Matt Rogers, and still in spite of a bad final tribal, was 1 vote away from achieving winner status. Then there's David Janat, who needs no introductions. He was basically the entire pre-merge of Champions vs Contenders, alongside Luke. David proved in this season he was fully deserving of a second chance after going head to head against the best, finding multiple idols, and even made a fantastic strategic play by fooling Sean with his fake idol. Most of the villainous meals on All Stars were more so of the sneaky backstabbing variety, whereas David is a complete powerhouse. He'll go up against you and tell you you're going home if he needs to, so that rounds out the cast. That's the end of the video. Thank you all for watching. The cast for the brand new All-Star season is on the screen, and in my opinion looks more well-rounded than Season 5's attempt. But let me know how you feel down below. Would you change anything? Who do you think will win out of this 24? If you enjoyed this video, leave a like and subscribe. Ladies and gentlemen, we are halfway there to 400 subscribers, with only about 16% of people that watch these videos being subscribed. So, you all know what to do. But have a great day, and as always, peace!